Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of R. I am your host Moon616 and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yeah, day 16 is here. Now, if you tuned in yesterday, I reviewed a film from 1974 called Vampyres, and today we're going to review the remake of that film. This is a modern day take on that 1974 Spanish film. From production from 2015, just got released here by Artsploitation Films in 2016, and it is also called Vampyres, spelt the exact same way. Yeah. I'm not really a big fan of this cover art, actually. The cover art that I used on the thumbnail for this video, I actually prefer a lot better. It's actually basically taken from the menu behind me, which is actually one of the coolest scenes in the film. But getting into the synopsis of this one, if you watched yesterday's review, the synopsis of this film is exactly the same. It's basically about these two very hot lesbian, bisexual vampires that roam the English area where they live, and they look for people to prey on, women, men, so they can take back to their castle, you know, wine them up, sex them up, and then kill them up type deal. Yeah, they're just looking for people to feed on and things like that. And, you know, of course, this one is also a very erotic, sexual type film also. So, yeah, that's the premise of the film. Now, my thoughts on this one. Now, this movie right here is pretty much identical to the original film, but it does have its variations, and it is a little bit different in structure. In the original film, there's a subplot involving these two campers that are just kind of camped out, like I said in the review, almost on the vampire's front lawn. And they're kind of doing their own thing, and you're kind of waiting for them to get involved into the film. Where this one, I find that the protagonists in this film are almost like the main storyline instead of the vampires. In the first kind of half of the film, it really does follow your protagonist. It's these three campers that are out in the English area, and they're out there. They're shooting a book, basically is kind of what they're doing. They're doing a picture book. They're out there taking pictures of the land, and they want to make this book and things like that. It does follow. It's got like a lot of character development with them, and it's kind of got bits and pieces of the vampire. They kind of structured it a little bit different, and that's more of like a modern day way of filmmaking right there. You know, instead of following your antagonist right from the get-go all the way through and kind of throwing in the protagonist stuff. Yeah, this one's a little bit backwards, so it's got a lot more to do with that. You get introduced to your vampires, and they are a little bit different in a sense. And what I mean by a little bit different, the mythology behind the vampires is a little bit different, and also, you know, it's a little bit differently presented in the film also, which is kind of interesting. For the most part, I think the director did a pretty good job. Victor Matalano, he throws a lot of shout-outs, and there's a lot of scenes in this film that are like directly taken from the original film also. Like there's this one scene where this dude's laying in bed with one of the vampires, and she's sleeping with her eyes open. He kind of does this and stuff. It's taken straight from the film, so that's kind of cool homage to there. He actually dedicated this film to Jose Ramon Reyes also, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, this one right here I thought was actually shot very well. You know, it looks really good. You know, the acting, in my opinion, I thought was a little bad in this one, though. I thought the acting wasn't overly the greatest on both parts. I didn't think the vampires' acting was that great. It's also because it's kind of a language barrier. This is a Spanish film that's in English, so the English is very kind of broken, but it does come out very dry at times, not believable in parts. And, you know, same with the protagonist characters. Like, I don't know, I didn't like the dialogue at all. I thought the dialogue was very dry. Came off kind of bad and bland at times too. Wasn't very interesting. And another thing about this film, I thought it didn't really capture much atmosphere at all. You know, it's kind of the same type movie, but it just doesn't catch that atmosphere that was in the original film, which is kind of a shame because the first film is supposed to be about the atmosphere and you know, the look and the aesthetic of the film. This one does look decent, it just doesn't capture that. Another thing I didn't really care for the film was the music. I really didn't care for the music in this film either. I felt at times it didn't fit, which is kind of sad too. But all in all, man, you know, the blood and gore is there. The sex and violence is definitely there. I thought the blood looked really good. One of the cool scenes in the film is actually this one right here where the vampires are in the bathtub and they have this, you know, this girl hanging above them. They cut the throat, and, you know, as you can see, it's not really spoiling anything. Very cool scene. That's a scene that wasn't in the first film. But, you know, ultimately this one kind of plays out very similar to the original one, but I think where this one kind of falters big time is in the third act. Now, I think a lot of people that like, these modern takes on these stories might dig the end of this film. It gets a little crazy for me. I didn't really care for it the way it happens. All of a sudden, it's kind of got this very kind of slow build up to the film, and then all of a sudden the end hits, and it just goes batshit crazy. I feel like this movie just turned into such a modern telling, and the way the story is, it's just kind of a cop-out. I mean, it's one of those deals where, the vampires, they catch these people, they've got them in the basement, they start doing some torture, but then they also start to explain to them their history. Like, they're blatantly telling the viewer, the history of them and stuff. I mean, at this point, we don't even really need to know anything. I think it was just the way the story was presented was just kind of cheesy at the end. You didn't really need to hear anything. And, it seemed out of character too. They start torturing and they start, saying all this cheesy dialogue and things like that. Not even cheesy, but just kind of bad dialogue. And I just think the whole end scene just came off a little too much. I think in the original film, I think a lot of people felt maybe the end was a little anticlimactic, so the director tried to step his game up by throwing in all these torture scenes and getting real gory and getting real nasty and things like that. I just don't think it worked. I don't think the way it was presented to you worked at all in this one. So overall as a product, I think it's not a bad film. I just didn't like the structure of it. I didn't like how we followed these characters so much. There was a lot of scenes and stuff that I thought were pretty decent, with scenes in the cemetery and things like that. But overall, I didn't really care the whole aesthetics of the film. I thought the house in this one was not very good looking. There's some throwaway characters in this one too. Carolyn Monroe plays in this film as a hotel owner, and her character is kind of in and out in the story. It's a throwaway character. Like, that whole subplot with her in the hotel and things doesn't even need to be in the film. It just feels like a total filler. This one is about 10 minutes shorter than the original film too, and it actually feels longer to me for some odd reason. There is things I liked. I thought the girls were beautiful. They're awesome. Some of the sex scenes are actually pretty crazy, but all in all, I do still prefer the original film. Not a bad homage film. Like I said, he did dedicate it to Jose Ramon Lares, and which is really cool. So, but not really a whole lot more to say about it. I didn't really overly care for this one a whole lot. I'm going to give this one a 5.5 out of 10. Watch at your own risk. You might like this one better than the original one. Who knows? I prefer an atmospheric, kind of slower burn rather than more of a straight up gore fest. That just felt like it was pushed on you in this film. I don't know. But all in all, there is some cool scenes. But Vampyres from 2015, definitely not one of my favorite remakes ever, but it is what it is. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it here for day 16. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow, day 17. And as usual, peace!